And according to the World Food Programme, disruptions to key shipping routes have driven up fuel and transport costs worldwide. Pushing food prices higher, oil prices have remained above $100 a barrel since March, increasing the cost of producing, transporting and importing food across many vulnerable economies. Well, the WFP has earlier warned that as many as 45 million additional people could fall into acute food insecurity if high oil prices persist. Now, that scenario is unfolding. Countries heavily dependent on imported food and energy, including Afghanistan, Somalia and Sri Lanka. They're facing growing pressure from rising costs, weaker incomes and disrupted trade flows.
When the Middle East crisis started, we at WFP conducted an analysis to estimate the potential food security impact. And we told you back then that we projected that 45 million people would tip into acute food insecurity by the end of June should the barrel of oil remain above $100. So here we are a few months into the crisis. And what we thought we would do is look at the country level impacts. We did deep dives in 3 countries. We looked at Afghanistan, we looked at Somalia, and we looked at Sri Lanka.
The impact is most visible in some of the world's most fragile economies. In Afghanistan, 17.4 million people are expected to face acute food insecurity, while Somalia could see 6.5 million people struggling with severe hunger next year.
In Somalia, we estimate that 2.5 million people will not be able to afford a basic food basket. Basically, people won't be able to afford the essential food that they need. In Afghanistan, we project that 2.3 million people will not be able to, will fall into acute food insecurity. So that's IPC 3 and above. And in Sri Lanka, again, a very different situation to the first 2 countries. We estimate that 1.3 million people may be at risk of not being able to meet their food needs, that they're not able to buy the food that they need every day to feed their families.
Meanwhile, Sudan faces an even more complex challenge, already battling civil war and one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. The country relies heavily on imported fuel and fertilizers from the Gulf. Farmers say that soaring input costs are forcing them to reduce planting of staple crops such as sorghum and millet.
The recent Iran war added more salt to the wound, and it's not, if not directly, through so many indirect ways. Many of the analysts relate this impact to the availability of fertilizers, but that could be one of the issues, which is not necessarily the case now. Availability might not be the problem. However, the price and accessibility to these fertilizers will be a problem.
Now, at a time when hunger is rising, humanitarian agencies are facing a severe funding crunch. The agency estimates that it will be able to assist 1.5 million fewer people than originally planned in 2026. If the conflict drags on for another 6 months, more than 9 million people could lose food assistance altogether. Combined with climate risk and continued geopolitical instability, the Gulf conflict is emerging as a major threat to global food security well beyond the region itself.